Lesson 14. Summarize security governance concepts. Lesson Introduction. Security governance is a critical aspect of an organization's overall security posture, providing a framework that guides the management of cybersecurity risks. It involves developing, implementing, and maintaining policies, procedures, standards, and guidelines to safeguard information assets and technical infrastructure. Security governance encompasses the roles and responsibilities of various stakeholders, emphasizing the need for a culture of security awareness throughout the organization. Governance frameworks must manage and maintain compliance with relevant laws, regulations, and contractual obligations while supporting the organization's strategic objectives. Effective security governance also involves continuous monitoring and improvement to adapt to evolving threats and changes in the business and regulatory environment. Lesson Objectives. In this lesson, you will do the following. Identify the difference among policies, procedures, standards, and guidelines. Learn about the complexities of the legal environment impacting security operations. Explore governance concepts and the role of leadership in security operations. Understand the importance of change management practices. Explore the role of automation and orchestration in security operations. Rate your confidence. Topic 14a. Policies, Standards, and Procedures. Exam Objectives Covered. 5.1 Summarize elements of effective security governance. Policies, standards, and procedures are three key components that form the foundation of an organization's security program. Policies are high-level, authoritative documents defining the organization's security commitment. Standards are more specific than policies and specify the methods used to implement technical and procedural requirements. Procedures are detailed, step-by-step instructions describing how to complete specific tasks and align to the requirements provided in standards. Procedures provide clear directions for individuals to perform their job duties consistently, securely, and efficiently. Rate your confidence. Policies. Organizational policies are vital in establishing effective governance and ensuring organizational compliance. They form the framework for operations, decision-making, and behaviors, setting the rules for a compliant and ethical corporate culture. Governance describes the processes used to direct and control an organization, including the processes for decision-making and risk management. Policies are the outputs of governance. They establish the rules that frame decision-making processes, risk mitigation, fairness, and transparency. They set expectations for performance, align the organization around common goals, prevent misconduct, and remove inefficiencies. Compliance describes how well an organization adheres to regulations, policies, standards, and laws relevant to its operation. Organizational policies are critical in ensuring compliance by integrating legal and regulatory requirements into daily operations. Policies define the rules and procedures for maintaining compliance and outline the consequences of noncompliance. For example, an organization may have a data privacy policy that explains how it will maintain compliance with relevant laws to protect customer data. The policy details data collection, storage, processing, and sharing practices, including employee responsibilities, to ensure that all organization members understand and adhere to the rules. Organizational policies help facilitate compliance assessments through internal and external audits, as policies provide a roadmap auditors follow to determine whether an organization is operating as it claims and is successfully satisfying its regulatory obligations. Common organizational policies. Acceptable Use Policy, AUP. This policy outlines the acceptable ways in which network and computer systems may be used by defining what constitutes acceptable behavior by users. AUPs typically address browsing behavior, appropriate content, software downloads, and handling sensitive information. The goal of an AUP is to ensure that users do not engage in activities that could harm the organization or its resources. Also, the AUP should detail the consequences for noncompliance, including details regarding how compliance is monitored, and require employees to acknowledge their comprehension of the AUP's rules via signature. Information security policies. These are policies created by an organization to ensure that all information technology users comply with rules and guidelines related to the security of the information stored within the environment or the organization's sphere of authority. Business Continuity and Continuity of Operations Plans, COOP. Business continuity and COOP policies focus on the critical processes that must remain operational during and after a substantial disruption like a natural disaster or a cyber attack. Disaster recovery. These policies detail the steps required to recover from a catastrophic event such as a natural disaster, major hardware failure, or a significant security breach. The goal is to restore operations as quickly and efficiently as possible. Incident response. This policy outlines the processes to be followed after a security breach or cyber attack occurs. It details the steps for identifying, investigating, controlling, and mitigating the impact of incidents, including procedures for communicating about the incident to internal and external sources. Software Development Lifecycle, SDLC. SDLC policies govern software development within an organization. These policies provide a structured plan detailing the stages of development from initial requirement analysis to maintenance after deployment. It ensures that all software produced meets the organization's efficiency, reliability, and security standards. Change management. Change management policies outline how changes to IT systems and software are requested, reviewed, approved, and implemented, including all documentation requirements. Guidelines. Guidelines describe recommendations that steer actions in a particular job role or department. They are more flexible than policies and allow greater discretion for the individuals implementing them. Guidelines provide best practices and suggestions on achieving goals and completing tasks effectively and help individuals understand the required steps to comply with a policy or improve effectiveness. An example of a guideline might be related to help desk support practices related to using email in response to employee support requests. The guideline may recommend specific language, tone, or response times but would allow for flexibility depending on the request's circumstances. While both policies and guidelines work to steer the actions and behaviors of employees, policies are mandatory and define strict rules, whereas guidelines provide recommendations and allow for more individual judgment and discretion. Regular review of guidelines is important to ensure they remain practical and relevant. Periodic assessments and updates to guidelines allow organizations to adapt them to changing technologies, business operations, emerging threats, and evolving industry standards. Rate your confidence. Procedures. Policies and guidelines set a framework for behavior. Procedures define step-by-step instructions and checklists for ensuring that a task is completed in a way that complies with policy. Personnel management. Identity and access management, IAM, involves both IT/security procedures and technologies and human resources, HR, policies. Personnel management policies are applied in 3 phases. Recruitment, hiring, locating and selecting people to work in particular job roles. Security issues here include screening candidates and performing background checks. Operation working. It is often the HR department that manages the communication of policy and training to employees, though there may be a separate training and personal development department within larger organizations. As such, it is critical that HR managers devise training programs that communicate the importance of security to employees. Termination or separation, firing or retiring. Whether an employee leaves voluntarily or involuntarily, termination is a difficult process with numerous security implications. Background checks. A background check determines that a person is who they say they are and are not concealing criminal activity, bankruptcy, or connections that would make them unsuitable or risky. Employees working in high confidentiality environments or with access to high-value transactions will obviously need to be subjected to a greater degree of scrutiny. For some jobs, especially federal jobs requiring a security clearance, background checks are mandatory. Some background checks are performed internally, whereas others are done by an external third party. Onboarding. Onboarding at the HR level is the process of welcoming a new employee to the organization. The same sort of principle applies to taking on new suppliers or contractors. Some of the same checks and processes are used in creating customer and guest accounts. As part of onboarding, the IT and HR function will combine to create an account for the user to access the computer system, assign the appropriate privileges, and ensure the account credentials are known only to the valid user. These functions must be integrated to avoid creating accidental configuration vulnerabilities, such as IT creating an account for an employee who is never actually hired. Some of the other tasks and processes involved in onboarding include the following: secure transmission of credentials, creating and sending an initial password or issuing a smart card securely. The process needs protection against rogue administrative staff. Newly created accounts with simple or default passwords are an easily exploitable backdoor. Asset allocation. Provision computers or mobile devices for the user or agree to the use of bring your own device handsets. Training/policies. Schedule appropriate security awareness and role-relevant training and certification. IAM automation can streamline onboarding by automating the provisioning and access management tasks associated with new employees. It enables the automated creation and configuration of user accounts, assignment of appropriate access privileges based on established roles and access policies, and integration with HR systems for efficient new employee data synchronization. IAM automation reduces manual effort, ensures consistency, and improves security by enforcing standardized access controls, ultimately accelerating onboarding while maintaining strong security practices. Playbooks. Playbooks are essential to establishing and maintaining organizational procedures by establishing a central repository of well-defined, standardized strategies and tactics. They guide personnel to ensure consistency in operations and improve quality and effectiveness. Playbooks facilitate knowledge sharing and continuity as employees move into new roles or leave the organization. Playbooks also mitigate risk by documenting critical procedures and preserving institutional knowledge. Playbooks help new team members quickly learn established processes while existing team members have a reference point for their tasks. Moreover, playbooks act as a tool for quality assurance and continuous improvement. Clearly defining processes and the best practices to handle them makes it easier to identify and improve problem areas. By using playbooks, organizations can monitor the use and effectiveness of procedures over time and modify them as necessary to foster an environment of continual learning and development. Most significantly, playbooks are essential in incident response and crisis management because they detail emergency procedures and contingency plans vital to steering activities during an emergency or crisis. Playbooks help incident response teams make quick decisions and work more effectively under stress, leading to more resilient operations and reducing the likelihood and impact of major security incidents. Several best practice guides and frameworks are available to assist in developing playbooks, such as the MITRE ATT and CK Framework https://attack. MITRE, org, NIST Special Publication 800-61 https://CSRC. NIST, gov/publications/details/800-61/rev-2/final. And Open Security and Safety Alliance, OSSA, https://www. Open Security and Safety Alliance, org/about-us. Change management. The implementation of changes should be carefully planned, with consideration for how the change will affect dependent components. For most significant or major changes, organizations should attempt to trial the change first. Every change should be accompanied by a rollback or remediation plan so that the change can be reversed if it has harmful or unforeseen consequences. Changes should also be scheduled sensitively if they are likely to cause system downtime or other negative impact on the workflow of the business units that depend on the IT system being modified. Most networks have a scheduled maintenance window period for authorized downtime. When the change has been implemented, its impact should be assessed and the process reviewed and documented to identify any outcomes that could help future change management projects. Offboarding. Offboarding ensures that an employee leaves a company gracefully, including an exit interview for feedback. Offboarding is also used when a project with contractors or third parties ends. In terms of security, there are several processes that must be completed. Account management. Disable the user account and privileges. Ensure that any information assets created or managed by the employee but owned by the company are accessible in terms of encryption keys or password-protected files. Company assets. Retrieve mobile devices, keys, smart cards, USB media, and so on. The employee will need to confirm, and in some cases prove, that they have not retained copies of any information assets. Personal assets. Wipe employee-owned devices of corporate data and applications. The employee may also be allowed to retain some information assets, such as personal emails or contact information, depending on the policies in force. The departure of some types of employees should trigger additional processes to re-secure network systems. Examples include employees with detailed knowledge of security systems and procedures and access to shared or generic account credentials. These credentials must be changed immediately. Rate your confidence. Standards. Standards define the expected outcome of a task, such as a particular configuration state for a server or a performance baseline for a service. The selection and application of standards within an organization center on various dynamic elements, such as regulatory requirements, business-specific needs, risk management strategies, industry practices, and stakeholder expectations. Regulatory requirements are the primary driver for adopting standards. The unique operational differences between organizations dictate varying legal requirements and security, privacy, and data protection regulations. These requirements often require implementing specific standards or using guidelines for achieving compliance. The healthcare industry in the United States is a classic example, where providers must comply with stringent data protection and privacy standards established by the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, HIPAA. Depending on the nature of its operations, customer base, or technological dependencies, each organization must adopt standards that specifically address its needs. For example, organizations heavily utilizing credit card transactions will adopt the PCI DSS standard to safeguard the cardholder data environment, CDE. Similarly, cloud-reliant organizations often prefer adopting ISO/IEC 27017 and ISO/IEC 27018 to ensure safe and secure cloud operations. Risk management strategies. Organizations stress the need for appropriate standards. Standards help identify, evaluate, and manage risks and fortify the organization's resilience against security incidents or data breaches. ISO/IEC 27001, for example, provides a comprehensive framework for an information security management system, ISMS, designed to aid organizations in effectively managing security risks. Adherence to industry best practices also influences the adoption of standards. Conforming to widely accepted and tested standards demonstrates an organization's commitment to upholding high security and data protection levels to bolster the organization's reputation and build trust with customers and partners. Stakeholder expectations such as customers, partners, vendors, investors, executive boards, etc., significantly influence the choice of standards too. Stakeholders view adherence to recognized standards as an affirmation of the organization's dedication to quality, security, and reliability. The choice of standards should not be a procedural decision, but instead a strategic one. The selection of standards involves a thoughtful balance of legal and regulatory requirements, business-specific needs, risk management protocols, industry best practices, and stakeholder expectations. Adopting standards impacts how a business operates, and selecting appropriate standards helps an organization run more effectively. In contrast, adopting the wrong standards or failing to plan the implementation of standards properly can have severe negative consequences. Industry standards. Common industry standards used by public and private organizations include the following: ISO/IEC 27001, an international standard that provides an information security management system, ISMS, framework to ensure adequate and proportionate security controls are in place. ISO/IEC 27002. This is a companion standard to ISO 27001 and provides detailed guidance on specific controls to include in an ISMS. ISO/IEC 27017, an extension to ISO 27001 and specific to cloud services. ISO/IEC 27018, another addition to ISO 27001 and specific to protecting personally identifiable information, PI, in public clouds. NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technology, Special Publication 800-63, a U.S. government standard for digital identity guidelines, including password and access control requirements. PCI DSS, Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard, a standard for organizations that handle credit cards from major card providers, including requirements for protecting cardholder data. FIPS, Federal Information Processing Standards. FIPS are standards and guidelines developed by NIST for federal computer systems in the United States that specify requirements for cryptography. Common industry standards such as these play a significant role in auditing by providing a benchmark for evaluating organizational compliance and security practices. Standards such as ISO 27001, NIST SP 800-63, PCI DSS, and FIPS provide comprehensive details and requirements for information security, risk management, data protection, and privacy. Auditing against these standards helps organizations assess their adherence to best practices, identify gaps or vulnerabilities, and demonstrate their commitment to maintaining a secure and compliant environment. Internal standards. Organizations also establish internal standards to ensure the safety and integrity of operations and protect valuable resources such as data, intellectual property, and hardware. Internal standards provide consistent descriptions to define and manage important organizational practices. Standards differ from policies in a few ways. A simplistic view of the differences between the two is that standards focus on implementation, whereas policies focus on business practices. Password standards describe the specific technical requirements required to design and implement systems, including how passwords are managed within those systems to ensure that different systems can interoperate and use consistent password handling methods. Hashing algorithms defines requirements for the hash functions used to store passwords. Password salting defines the methods used to protect password hashes to protect them from rainbow table attacks. Secure password transmission defines the methods for secure password transmission, including details regarding appropriate cipher suites. Password reset defines appropriate identity verification methods to protect password reset requests from exploitation. Password managers defines the requirements for password managers that organizations may choose to incorporate. Access control standards ensure that only authorized individuals can access the systems and data they need to do their jobs to protect sensitive information and help prevent accidental changes or damage. Internally developed access control standards typically include the following elements. Access control models defines appropriate access models for different use cases. Examples include role-based access control, REAC, discretionary access control, DAC, and mandatory access control, MAC, among others. User identity verification defines acceptable methods to verify identities before granting access. Examples include simple passwords, security tokens, biometric data, and other methods. Privilege management defines the methods for managing user privileges to ensure they have the minimum required access. Authentication protocols defines specific acceptable authentication protocols, such as Kerberos, OAuth, or SAML. Session management defines allowable session management practices, including requirements for session timeouts, secure generation and transmission of session cookies, and other similar requirements. Audit trails defines mandatory audit capabilities designed to assist with identifying and investigating security incidents. Physical security standards protect data centers, computer rooms, wiring closets, cabling, hardware, and infrastructure comprising the IT environment and the people who use and maintain them. Some examples include the following. Building security, methods for securing facilities, including card access systems, CCTV surveillance, and security personnel. Workstation security, standards for physically securing laptops or other portable devices. Data center and server room security defines requirements for card access, biometric scans, sign-in/sign-out logs, and escorted access for visitors. Equipment disposal defines requirements for securely disposing or repurposing equipment to ensure that sensitive data is irrecoverable. Visitor management defines the requirements for managing visitors, such as sign-in/sign-out procedures, visitor badges, and escorted access requirements. Encryption protects data from unauthorized access, and it is vital for securing data both at rest, stored data, and in transit, data being transmitted. Encryption standards identify the acceptable cipher suites and expected procedures needed to provide assurance that data remains protected. Encryption algorithms defines allowable encryption algorithms, such as ES, Advanced Encryption Standard, for symmetric or ECC for asymmetric encryption. Key length defines the minimum allowable key lengths for different types of encryption. Key management defines how keys are generated, distributed, stored, and changed. It often includes requirements for using secure key management systems, procedures for regularly changing keys, and procedures for revoking them if they are compromised. Rate your confidence. Legal environment. Governance committees ensure their organizations abide by all applicable cybersecurity laws and regulations to protect them from legal liability. The governance committee must address these external considerations in the strategic plan for the organization. Governance committees must manage many legal risks, such as regulatory compliance requirements, contractual obligations, public disclosure laws, breach liability, privacy laws, intellectual property protection, licensing agreements, and many others. Cybersecurity governance committees must interpret and translate these legal requirements into operational controls to avoid legal trouble, act ethically, and protect the organization. The key frameworks, benchmarks, and configuration guides may be used to demonstrate compliance with a country's legal/regulatory requirements or with industry-specific regulations. Due diligence is a legal term meaning that responsible persons have not been negligent in discharging their duties. Negligence may create criminal and civil liabilities. Many countries have enacted legislation that criminalizes negligence in information management. In the United States, for example, the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, SOX, mandates the implementation of risk assessments, internal controls, and audit procedures. The Computer Security Act, 1987, requires federal agencies to develop security policies for computer systems that process confidential information. In 2002, the Federal Information Security Management Act, FISMA, was introduced to govern the security of data processed by federal government agencies. Some regulations have specific cybersecurity control requirements. Others simply mandate best practice, as represented by a particular industry or international framework. It may be necessary to perform mapping between different industry frameworks, such as NIST and ISO 27K, if a regulator specifies the use of one but not another. Conversely, the use of frameworks may not be mandated as such, but auditors are likely to expect them to be in place as a demonstration of a strong and competent security program. Global law. As information systems become more interconnected globally, many countries have enacted laws with broader, international reach. Some examples include the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, and California Consumer Privacy Act, CCPA, which both act to protect the privacy of the constituents associated with each respective law irrespective of geopolitical boundaries. Personal data and the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR. Where some types of legislation address cybersecurity due diligence, others focus in whole or in part on information security as it affects privacy or personal data. Privacy is a distinct concept and requires that collection and processing of personal information be both secure and fair. Fairness and the right to privacy, as enacted by regulations such as the European Union's General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, means that personal data cannot be collected, processed, or retained without the individual's informed consent, unless there are other overriding considerations, such as public interest or other legal obligations. Informed consent means that the data must be collected and processed only for the stated purpose, and that purpose must be clearly described to the user in plain language, not legal jargon. GDPR, https://commission, Europa, the/law/data-protection/data-protection-EU_. Gives data subjects rights to withdraw consent and to inspect, amend, or erase data held about them. Failure to comply with GDPR rules can result in incredibly large fines. California Consumer Privacy Act, CCPA. The CCPA provides California residents the right to know what personal information businesses collect about them, the purpose of collecting this data, and with whom they share it. It protects California residents' rights to access their personal information, delete it, or opt out of its sale. Organizations must inform consumers about the categories of personal information they collect and the purposes for which the information will be used. The CCPA applies to any organization, regardless of its location, that provides goods or services to California residents, has gross annual revenues over $25 million, buys or sells the personal information of 50,000 or more consumers, households, or devices, or derives 50% or more of annual revenues from selling personal information. Verones' blog contains a useful overview of privacy laws in the United States, verones.com/blog/us-privacy-laws. Regulations and national, local, regional, and industry laws. Many countries have national-level laws to support effective cybersecurity practices and protect citizen data. The scope and detail of these laws varies significantly from one country to another, but organizations must comply with the laws in all the jurisdictions where they operate. Examples in the United States include the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, HIPAA, Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, GLBA, and Federal Information Security Management Act, FISMA. The United Kingdom's national laws include the Data Protection Act 2018 and the Network and Information Systems, NIS, Regulations 2018. Canada enforces a privacy law called Personal Information Protection and Electronic Documents Act, PIPEDA. India regulates the IT industry with the Information Technology Act 2000, and Australia enforces the Privacy Act 1988. While it is not necessary to understand the details of each of these laws, it is important to understand that this complicated legal framework greatly influences the functional elements of a cybersecurity program. While most cybersecurity laws typically have national or international scope due to the global nature of the Internet, there are also laws and regulations with a more local or regional reach. These laws may be specific to states, provinces, or even cities, particularly in larger countries like the United States. Two important examples include the New York Department of Financial Services, DFS, Part 500 Cybersecurity Regulation, and the Massachusetts 201 CMR 17.00. Industry-specific cybersecurity laws and regulations govern how data should be handled and protected. Here are a few key examples to help highlight that cybersecurity is a significant concern across all sectors of industry and is protected by a complicated matrix of laws that must be accommodated by cybersecurity operations and organizational governance. Healthcare. Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, HIPAA, United States. The General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, European Union. Financial Services. Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, GLEA, United States. Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard, PCI DSS. Contractual Obligation. Telecommunications. Communications Assistance for Law Enforcement Act, CALIA, United States. Energy. North American Electric Reliability Corporation, NERC, United States and Canada. Education and Children. Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, FERPA, United States. Children's Internet Protection Act, CIPA, United States. Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, COPPA, United States. Government. Federal Information Security Modernization Act, FISMA, United States. Criminal Justice Information Services, CJIS, Security Policy, United States. The Government Security Classifications, GSC, United Kingdom. Cybersecurity regulations are legal rules and guidelines formulated by governments and regulatory bodies to safeguard digital information and systems from cyber threats. They set standards for protecting data confidentiality, integrity, and availability, particularly sensitive and personal information. Regulations cover diverse capabilities, including data protection, network and information systems security, data breach notifications, digital identity verification, and many others. Businesses, government agencies, organizations, and executives must work diligently to comply with these regulations or risk significant fines and imprisonment. Cybersecurity regulations aim to protect consumer privacy rights, ensure the security of the financial system, uphold the stability and trustworthiness of the internet and digital economy, and protect critical national infrastructure from cybercrime. The applicability of regulations depends on factors such as the industry the organization operates within, the types of data it handles, and the regions where it conducts business. Here are a few key examples, several of which have been previously mentioned. General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR. California Consumer Privacy Act, CCPA. Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, HIPAA. Federal Information Security Management Act, FISMA. Network and Information Systems, NIS, Directive. Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification, CMMC. Rate Governance and Accountability. Governance practices ensure organizations abide by all applicable cybersecurity laws and regulations to protect them from legal liability. Governance and organizational level oversight must manage many legal risks, such as regulatory compliance requirements, contractual obligations, public disclosure laws, breach liability, privacy laws, intellectual property protection, and licensing agreements, and interpret and translate these legal requirements into operational controls to avoid legal trouble, act ethically, and protect the organization. Monitoring and revision. The cybersecurity landscape is continually evolving. Consequently, organizations must ensure that their cybersecurity policies, procedures, standards, and legal compliance practices associated with legal and regulatory compliance are regularly monitored, evaluated, and updated. These responsibilities are generally managed via collaboration among diverse groups to review existing policies, procedures, and standards and ensure their effectiveness against current requirements. Routine audits, inspections, and assessments are commonly used to measure compliance levels and identify new risks. The results of compliance reports, technological changes, business processes, laws, or newly identified risks drive policy, procedure, and standards revisions. Regular training sessions help to inform employees of policy changes and ensure continued compliance. Additionally, organizations must maintain awareness of any changes in cybersecurity legislation in their jurisdictions, including international, national, regional, or industry-specific laws. Effective monitoring and revision of cybersecurity policies, procedures, standards, and legal compliance practices is a dynamic, cyclical process requiring diligence, foresight, and proactive strategies. Governance boards. Governance boards are crucial in ensuring an organization's effective security governance and oversight because they are responsible for setting strategic objectives, policies, and guidelines for security practices and risk management. Governance boards oversee the implementation of security controls, work closely with risk management teams to ensure compliance with relevant laws and regulations, and evaluate the security program's overall effectiveness. Governance boards drive organization-wide security practices through leadership, guidance, and accountability and ensure that security risks are effectively identified and mitigated. Governance boards unite executive management, security professionals, and stakeholders to ensure security is a top strategic priority aligned with the organization's objectives and values.
Decentralized.
Centralized and decentralized security governance models aim to achieve the organization's security goals, protect assets, mitigate risks, and ensure regulatory compliance. Additionally, they recognize the importance of security and the need for collaboration between stakeholders and departments. However, there are notable differences between the two approaches. In centralized security governance, decision-making authority primarily rests with a single core group or department that establishes policies, procedures, and guidelines and makes important security-focused decisions. Resource allocation, including budget and personnel, is controlled by this group to promote consistency and standardization across the entire organization. In contrast, decentralized security governance distributes decision-making authority to different groups or departments to facilitate security-focused decisions based on localized needs and priorities. Each unit has greater control over the allocation of security resources to allow greater adaptability and tailoring of security capabilities. The choice between centralized and decentralized security governance depends on the organization's size, structure, culture, and risk appetite. Ultimately, the goal is to create a security governance model that effectively supports the organization's needs while balancing security risks. Hybrid governance structures combine elements of both centralized and decentralized approaches. It aims to balance the advantages of centralized oversight and decentralized implementation. Under a hybrid system, specific security processes and decisions are centralized, while others are delegated to business units or departments to facilitate the development of standardized policies at the enterprise level while providing flexibility and local control as warranted. Committees and boards. Governance boards depend upon governance committees to assist in complex decision-making situations. The governance board is typically composed of executives with the ultimate decision-making authority and is responsible for setting the strategic direction and policies of the organization. This responsibility often requires executives to make critical decisions regarding subjects outside their scope of expertise. Committees are specialized groups comprised of subject matter experts, stakeholders, and representatives from relevant departments that focus on specific issues, such as security, risk management, audit, or compliance. They provide in-depth analysis, recommendations, and operational support to the governance board to provide them with the critical information needed to make effective decisions. Governance boards and governance committees serve distinct roles within an organization's governance structure. Governance boards are typically composed of high-level executives and external stakeholders, whereas governance committees are typically comprised of subject matter experts and operational leaders. Government entities and groups. At the government level, governance committees are often represented by specialized agencies. Several government agencies are associated with security governance and differ between countries and jurisdictions. A few examples of government agencies with security governance responsibilities include the following. Agency.
Description.
Regulatory agencies. Regulatory agencies establish and enforce security standards, regulations, and guidelines. They oversee compliance with laws related to specific sectors such as finance, healthcare, telecommunications, and energy. Intelligence agencies. Intelligence agencies gather and analyze information to identify and counteract potential security threats and provide this information to national-level government groups to steer national policy and military strategy. Law enforcement agencies. Law enforcement agencies enforce laws and regulations related to public safety and security. They investigate and prosecute criminal activities, including cybercrimes and terrorist activities. Defense and military organizations. Defense and military organizations are responsible for safeguarding national security and protecting the country from external threats. They develop strategies, policies, and capabilities to address physical security, border control, and defense-related cybersecurity. Data protection authorities. Data protection authorities focus on protecting personal data and privacy rights. They enforce data protection regulations and provide guidance on the best practices for securing personal information. National cybersecurity agencies. National cybersecurity agencies focus on protecting critical infrastructure, government networks, and national cybersecurity interests. They develop cybersecurity strategies, coordinate incident response, and provide guidance on cybersecurity practices for government entities and private organizations. Data governance roles. Security governance relies heavily on specially designed and interdependent roles called owner, controller, processor, and custodian. Each role carries unique responsibilities that contribute to maintaining effective security oversight and control. Owner, a high-ranking employee, like a director or a vice president, typically holds the owner role and is ultimately responsible for ensuring data is appropriately protected. The owner identifies what level of classification and sensitivity the data has, decides who should have access to it, and what level of security should be applied. In relation to governance, the owner provides strategic guidance to ensure that security policies align with business objectives. Controller. The controller role closely relates to GDPR and identifies the purposes, conditions, and means of processing personal data. An individual, public authority, agency, or other body can fill the controller role. The controller ensures that data processing activities adhere to all legal requirements. In relation to governance, the controller helps maintain legal and regulatory compliance. Processor. The processor is responsible for processing personal data on behalf of the controller and often represents cloud service providers, CSP, but could also be represented by vendors and business partners. Processors must maintain records of their processing activities, cooperate with supervisory authorities, and implement appropriate security measures to protect the data they handle. In relation to governance, the processor role ensures that data is handled securely and in accordance with the rules established by the owner and controller roles. Custodian. The custodian, also known as the data steward, is responsible for the safe custody, transport, storage of the data, and implementation of business rules. The IT department typically represents the custodian role, and in relation to governance, the custodian role implements and enforces the security controls established by the data owner and controller and reports any issues indicative of a security incident. Coordination among data owner, controller, processor, and custodian in managing and protecting data is crucial to ensure compliance with data protection regulations, establish clear responsibilities, and maintain data integrity and security. Rate your confidence. Topic 14b. Change management. Exam objectives covered. 1.3 explain the importance of change management processes and the impact to security. Change management is a systematic approach to managing all changes made within an IT infrastructure. Its primary goal is to minimize risk and disruption while maximizing the value and efficiency of organizational changes. Change management relies on effective planning, testing, approval, and implementation of various changes ranging from minor updates to complicated system migrations. Change management must consider the potential impacts and dependencies of all proposed changes and mandate the development of contingency and rollback plans in case changes lead to unforeseen problems. Proper documentation and communication are also essential, ensuring that all relevant stakeholders understand the details of proposed changes and their implications. Change management programs promote a controlled progression of software and the IT infrastructure and contribute to its resilience and stability. Rate your
Few things stay the same, and that is especially the case when it comes to IT. Change is inevitable and usually welcome, but you've got to manage that change. To tell us more about change management processes and the impact of security, we've brought in Brian Calkin. Brian, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well, James. How are you?
Doing great, doing great. Brian is a CTO over at a company called CyberWA. Brian, tell us about yourself, CyberWA, and let's start talking about change management.
Yeah, sure. So first, great to be here. Thanks for having me. Again, Brian Calkin, about 20 years in cybersecurity. Had various roles over the years, from introductory cybersecurity roles as a SOC analyst to building SOCs, running SOCs, some incident response, and various management roles, executive roles. And as you mentioned, I'm currently the chief technology officer over at a company called CyberWA. We're doing cyber protective services for high net worth individuals and celebrities.
Brian, when it comes to change management, what are some of the things that you do and why is it so important?
Yeah, sure. So the concept of change management is basically to have a process or a series of processes in place that you are documenting and being made aware of all the various changes that occur within IT, within the organization. So that's essentially the concept of it.
So there's kind of an approval process. You document that, who owns what, who owns the projects, who are the stakeholders, things like that.
Yeah, exactly. Because, as you can imagine, within organizations, especially as it relates to cybersecurity, within organizations, you have many folks that are well-intentioned, looking to do good, but inadvertently can result in what's known as shadow IT, folks that are out there just trying to get their jobs done, working on the project that they're working on. They're going about their day, maybe making rule changes in firewalls, maybe standing up systems Again, all good things, but they may be inadvertently introducing vulnerabilities into the organization that they're just not aware of because they're not looking at the bigger picture. They're heads down, they're focused on their specific task, they're getting it done, but you really need something like a change management to get consensus and buy-in from the group at large.
Because these changes usually happen kind of in the shadows or little bits at a time. They don't get documented, and suddenly you find yourself in a radically new situation, right?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. So, you know, for instance, somebody could make a change again as part of their day-to-day job, and maybe that person is no longer with the organization. So, you know, it's easy to find a change, say, well, who did this? And somebody raises their hand, and say, oh, it was me, I did it, and here's the reason. Oh, that's fine. But what happens if that person's no longer there? Then you have a problem because you don't know if it was intentionally done. Maybe it was an employee doing good. Maybe it was a insider threat, perhaps. You know, maybe it shouldn't have been done. Maybe it was an adversary that's compromised your network and put a hole in your firewall. You just don't know.
What's one of the best ways then for organizations to kind of go about with this change management? What kind of processes can they put in place?
Yeah, sure. So I can speak from personal experience. We had in previous organizations, we called it a change control board, and it was representation from various parts of the organization. So you can imagine we had people from everybody from the chief information officer to the chief information security officer, CTO. We had folks from legal there, people heads of different departments in the organization, and we would get together as often as needed, but minimally once a month to review all the changes that people were putting forward to be made. And so we would, you know, give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down, depending on what the change was, and making sure fully documented and captured.
Now, in that case, how did that change control board come to be?
Yeah, so that's kind of a funny story. So what had happened was at the time I was running day-to-day technical operations, cybersecurity operations for the organization. And one of the folks that worked for me as part of his normal day-to-day job was making firewall rule changes to allow different traffic to come into the network and then leave the network. Again, something I was very well aware of and had sort of blessed. But I think looking back at it now, it certainly would fall into the realm of, you know, we've discussed shadow IT before, it would certainly fall into that category. So anyway, so what had happened was that we were doing our standard monthly brief out at all staff meeting, and the person who had made the change, innocently enough, said, yeah, we made this rule change, and here's what it does, and here's why we did it. And our chief information security officer at the time, her ears sort of perked up and said, well, what rule change, which firewall, and for what reason, and who authorized this? And all these questions came out. And of course, I had to sort of sheepishly raise my hand and say, well, you know, this is my responsibility. It's my team. And she says, okay, well, fine. And the next day she came to me and she says, I would like you to put together and run a change control board that tracks this stuff because we didn't have it, you know, so
Sure.
We were a newer organization, younger organization at the time. We were starting to mature. And so we, you know, as a result of that, quickly realized that it was time to, you know, get serious about this and put a change management process in place.
When it comes to making these changes, we're talking about, for example, updating documents, updating network maps, things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So it really, you know, depends on the organization. In our case, you know, we started off with a simple Excel spreadsheet where we would literally keep track of the various requests for changes that were made. We'd capture all the requests that were submitted to the board over a period of time. We would combine them. We would, you know, make sure we had a few to review. Then we'd all get together and we'd literally go through the list and we would say, okay, well, this particular head of the organization is requesting this change. Do we approve it? Do we deny it? What is the reason for us approving or denying it? We would occasionally bring folks in to have them give us a little bit of a explanation as to why they wanted the change made, maybe a network diagram, maybe, you know, something along those lines. So again, it varies, but as long as it's documented in some way that you can go back and then, you know, clearly see, you know, when it was requested, why it was requested, who requested it, whether it was approved, denied, and what the reasoning was behind it, you're well on your way to a successful change management process for sure.
I love it. I love how you kind of tattled on yourself and then you end up creating a much more mature process for your organization. That's terrific.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's one of the things you've got to own up to your mistakes when you make them. So I'm always big on that. So I have no fear in that regard.
That's great, Brian. Thank you so much for talking to us about change management. Sure appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Change management programs. Change management plays a vital role in an organization's security operations. It refers to a systematic approach that manages all changes made to a product or system, ensuring that methods and procedures are used to handle these changes efficiently and effectively. This helps minimize risks associated with the changes, ensuring they do not negatively impact the organization's security posture, service availability, or performance. A non-comprehensive list of changes typically managed in a change management program includes the following: software deployments, system updates, software patching, hardware replacements or upgrades, network modifications, changes to system configurations, new product implementations, new software integrations, changes and refreshes to support environments. If not properly managed, these changes can introduce new vulnerabilities into the system, disrupt services, or negatively impact the organization's compliance status. A robust change management program allows all changes to be tracked, assessed, approved, and reviewed. Each change must include documentation, including details describing what will be changed, the reasons for the change, any potential impacts, and a rollback plan in case the change does not work as planned. Each change must be subject to risk assessment to identify potential security impacts. Appropriate personnel must approve changes before implementation to ensure accountability and ensure changes align with business priorities. After implementations, changes must be reviewed and audited to ensure they have been completed correctly and achieved their stated outcome, without compromising security. Systematic management of changes supports an organization's ability to reduce unexpected downtime and system vulnerabilities. Change management programs contribute to operational resilience by ensuring that changes support business objectives without compromising security or compliance. A typical change management approval process involves several stages designed to ensure proper assessment and approval of change proposals. Change requests usually begin with submitting a request for change, RFC, that outlines the details of the proposed change, including its purpose, scope, and potential impact. The change request is reviewed by a designated change manager or committee that assesses its feasibility, risks, alignment with organizational objectives, and policy compliance. Following initial review, the change request undergoes a formal approval process involving relevant stakeholders, such as management, IT teams, and any impacted departments, to ensure consensus and authorization before the change is implemented. Throughout the process, documentation and communication are crucial in tracking the status and outcome of approved changes. Factors driving change management. Change management requires the expertise of individuals from various parts of an organization to oversee and implement changes effectively. Examples include IT professionals with technical knowledge, business leaders with operational knowledge, and compliance officers with legal expertise. The involvement of these stakeholders, which include anyone with a vested interest in the change or project being implemented or developed, facilitates a comprehensive review of proposed changes, helping to identify non-obvious risks and identify effective implementation plans that minimize risks and business disruptions. Additionally, including diverse stakeholders promotes acceptance and adoption of the changes because they were involved in the planning and decision-making process. Stakeholder participation fosters ownership and responsibility, which are crucial for successful change implementation. Ownership in change management refers to individuals or groups that are primarily responsible for implementing a specific change. Owners can be project managers, team leaders, or anyone responsible for the change. Owners are accountable for ensuring that the change is implemented as planned, risks are managed effectively, and there's a clear plan for communication and training associated with the change. They also ensure that all stakeholders appropriately review and approve the proposed change. Stakeholders in the change management process describe the individuals or groups impacted or interested in the change and include employees, managers, the Change Advisory Board, CAB, and sometimes even customers, vendors, and partners. Stakeholder engagement is critical to successful change management because keeping stakeholders informed about changes, understanding their concerns, and addressing their needs improves the likelihood of the change being accepted and implemented smoothly. Change management concepts. Concept, description, impact analysis, This is the process of identifying and assessing the potential implications of a proposed change, including how the change will impact individual users, business processes, or interconnected systems. Test results. Before implementation, changes must first be evaluated in a test environment to ensure they work as intended and do not cause issues. Test results provide valuable insight into the likelihood of success and help identify potential issues without impacting business operations. Backout plans. A backout plan is a contingency plan for reversing changes and returning systems and software to their original state if the implementation plan fails. A well-defined backout plan helps to minimize downtime and reduces the risk of data loss or other severe impacts. Maintenance windows. A maintenance window is a predefined, recurring time frame for implementing changes. They are typically scheduled during periods of low activity to minimize business disruptions. Standard operating procedures, SOPs. These are detailed, written instructions that describe how to carry out routine operations or changes. In change management, SOPs ensure that changes are implemented consistently and effectively. They are generally developed during testing phases and provide detailed steps for employees tasked with implementing a change to help reduce errors. Rate your allowed and blocked changes. Allow lists and deny lists play a significant role in change management practices and can reference two different viewpoints. One scenario observes allow and deny lists in relation to change types or from a different viewpoint. Allow and block lists describe software restriction approaches designed to control computer software. In terms of change management, an allow list describes a list of approved software, hardware, and specific change types, such as routine or low-risk changes, that are not required to go through the entire change management process. An allow list may also include specific individuals with change management approval authority. Allow lists help streamline change management by reducing the time and effort required for trusted or pre-authorized changes. Allow lists must be updated via regular reviews to stay corrected with changing organizational needs. A deny list includes explicitly blocked software, hardware, and specific change types. The block list might include software and hardware with known security or compatibility issues, high-risk or high-impact changes that must always go through the full change management process, or individuals who are not authorized to implement or approve changes. In this regard, deny lists help prevent unauthorized or risky changes from being implemented. They can serve as a security measure to clearly identify off-limits change types so that there is no room for negotiation or misinterpretation. Allow and block lists also refer to technical controls that exist in a few different contexts, including access controls, firewall rules, and software restriction mechanisms. Allow and block lists can impact change implementation by causing unintended problems. For example, software allow lists can be negatively impacted by software patching. If allow lists are based on executable file hash values, they will fail to recognize newly patched executables after patching because their hash values will change. This can result in fully patched systems that are unusable by employees because none of the previously allowed software can run. Regarding change management, it is important to incorporate the potential impacts of allow and block lists into the testing plan. Description. The General tab is selected. Few lines of text are followed by a Browse button on the right. The file information, security level, and description is provided below. 3 buttons, OK, Cancel, and Apply are present at the bottom right. Software restriction policies, block list, can be based on file hash values. Screenshot used with permission from Microsoft. Restricted activities refer to actions or changes that require additional scrutiny, strict controls, or higher levels of approval/authorization due to their potential impact on critical systems, sensitive data, or regulatory compliance. Rate your confidence. Restarts, dependencies, and downtime. Service and application restarts, as well as downtime, are critical considerations because they typically have a direct impact on business operations. For example, Reconfigurations and patching changes often require restarting services or applications, leading to downtime. One of the primary goals of change management is to minimize these disruptions by scheduling restarts or downtime events during maintenance windows or off-peak times to reduce the impact on users and business processes. Change management processes include communication requirements designed to ensure relevant stakeholders are aware of service outages so they can prepare accordingly. Effective change communication enhances the visibility of the change management process among stakeholders and fosters a culture of transparency and cooperation. Services and applications often depend on other software, interfaces, and services to function correctly. These dependencies complicate changes because a service restart in one area may significantly impact another. For example, if a database server is restarted, all applications that depend on the database will likely experience issues or downtime. A change that initially appeared to be minor may impact a wide range of the organization's operations. A careful analysis of software and system dependencies is critical for reasons like these. Understanding what services depend on each other, how restarts impact them, and what measures need to be taken to mitigate potential impacts help avoid unintended outages. Dependencies also impact the time needed for a change. If a service restart requires other services to be shut down or restarted, the overall change process will need more time. Additionally, backup plans may also need to consider dependencies as part of the process, which will also require additional time. Understanding the risks associated with restarts and downtime drives the development of effective backup plans and downtime contingencies, ensuring the organization is well prepared to handle any potential complications and unintended consequences related to the change. Additionally, understanding risks associated with a change also supports the development of post-change performance monitoring to validate that systems function as required and help detect issues quickly. Sometimes, the potential risks of a change causing significant disruption require the organization to identify alternative solutions. Some typical IT changes that generally require service or application restarts and result in downtime are as follows.
Change type.
Description: software upgrades and patches. When upgrading software applications, especially major version updates or patches, a restart of the application is typically needed to apply the changes effectively and ensure the updated version is fully functional. Configuration changes. Many system configuration changes, such as modifying server settings, network configurations, or database parameters, require a restart of the affected services to apply the changed configurations properly. Infrastructure changes. When changing infrastructure components, such as switches, routers, firewalls, and load balancers, it is typically necessary to restart the devices to apply the changes and ensure they do not negatively impact operations. Security changes. Implementing specific security measures, such as updating encryption protocols, enabling or disabling security features, or modifying access control settings, may require a restart of the services or applications to enforce the new security configurations effectively. Downtime refers to the scheduled time designated for changes to be implemented, scheduled downtime, or the amount of time a service or application is unavailable, unscheduled downtime. Legacy systems and applications. Legacy applications pose unique challenges regarding change management, as these systems are often critical to business operations and are difficult to manage. Many legacy applications are built using outdated technology, which introduces compatibility issues when implementing changes. For example, new software or security updates may be incompatible with legacy systems. These incompatibility issues might require specialized solutions such as virtualization, emulation, interpreters, custom fit-gap software, or modifications to the newer components to ensure compatibility. These accommodations further complicate the manageability of the legacy application. Legacy applications often lack comprehensive documentation or have been heavily customized over years or even decades, making them extremely difficult to manage. This complexity necessitates extensive testing and meticulous implementation plans to help avoid unintended consequences or outages. Legacy applications also typically lack vendor support, removing the option to call for help, which increases the risks associated with any change. A lack of vendor support coupled with high complexity, poor documentation, and business criticality make legacy systems a significant security problem. Rate your confidence. Documentation and version control. Version control refers to tracking and controlling changes to documents, code, or other important data. Organizations can use version control to maintain a historical record of changes, ensure only approved changes are implemented, and quickly revert changes to a previous version as warranted. Version control is also important when diagrams, policies, and procedures require updates. In this way, version control prevents confusion associated with using outdated or inconsistent documents. Assessing how a change impacts existing policies, procedures, and diagrams is essential, and change management plans should include provisions requiring updates to these documents as part of the implementation. The frequency of diagram and documentation updates varies, but they are typically updated whenever significant changes or modifications to a process, system, or application occur. Once document updates have been completed, the new versions should be clearly labeled and the older versions should be archived but still available for reference. Major changes may necessitate training for relevant teams or departments. Change management is a crucial aspect of implementing changes to a system or application. By assessing the potential technical implications of these changes, organizations can take necessary steps to minimize disruptions. Effective change management requires following specific processes, such as developing implementation plans and conducting thorough testing procedures. Through change management, leadership can ensure that any changes made are successful and contribute positively to the organization. Some examples of different documentation impacted by change management include the following. Item.
Description. Change requests.
Change requests themselves should be reviewed and updated to reflect the details and status of the change, including any modifications or approvals during the change management process. Policies and procedures. Changes may impact existing policies and procedures. As a result, these documents need to be reviewed and updated to ensure they align with the new processes, guidelines, or controls introduced through the change. System or process documentation. Documentation should reflect any changes to systems, applications, or processes. It may involve updating system architecture, diagrams, process flows, standard operating procedures, SOPs, or user manuals to represent the current state and functionality of the change system. Configuration management documentation. Changes to configuration items, such as servers, networks, or databases, should be tracked and documented within the configuration management system to maintain an accurate record of its configuration. Training materials. Changes often impact employees, and they may require more training. Existing training materials, such as presentations, manuals, or computer-based learning modules, must be reviewed and updated as warranted. Incident response and recovery plans. Changes made to systems or applications may necessitate updates to incident response and recovery plans to ensure they account for the revised configurations, new dependencies, or recovery procedures resulting from the change. Policies and procedures must change as often as technology does, which is often. Rate your confidence. Exam objectives covered. 4.7 explain the importance of automation and orchestration related to secure operations. Automation and orchestration are powerful tools for managing security operations. Automation uses software to perform repetitive, rule-based tasks such as monitoring for threats, applying patches, maintaining baselines, or responding to incidents to improve efficiency and reduce the likelihood of human error. Orchestration enhances automation by coordinating and streamlining the interactions between automated processes and systems. Orchestration supports seamless and integrated workflows, especially in large, complex environments with many different security tools and systems. Automation and orchestration also provide clear audit trails supporting regulatory compliance and incident investigation. While their implementation comes with challenges such as complexity, cost, and the potential for a single point of failure, careful management of these tools can greatly improve an organization's security posture. Rate your
In IT, we like to do game-changing activities, and orchestration, automation have been game-changing for security. To tell us more about this, we've got Brian Calkin. Brian, how you doing?
I'm doing well, James. How are you?
Doing great, doing great. Everybody, Brian is the CTO over at an organization called CyberWalk. Brian, tell us a bit about yourself. Let's start talking about automation and orchestration.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. So again, Brian Calkin, great to be here. About 20 years experience in cybersecurity, specifically many roles over the years, from SOC analyst way back in the day to building SOCs, running SOCs, various operational roles, management roles, executive roles, and as you mentioned, CTO currently at CyberWalk, where we're doing offering cybersecurity services, protective services to celebrities and high net worth individuals.
You know, Brian, when it comes to automation, we've been doing that in the IT space and security space for years. Let's talk about some of the use cases. I've seen people using scripts and playbooks like from Ansible, for example, to provision users or generate entire, phalanxes, entire groups of servers and things like that. And tell us a bit about automation.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So my background is, again, largely running SOCs, building SOCs, managing analysts. And our concept or our sort of philosophy is anything that you've done that takes you a large amount of time, but you can automate, should automate. And so, for example, I can remember one instance where we downloaded an entire database dump that a hacker had compromised of usernames and passwords of literally millions of individuals. And we needed to sift through them and find if any of our clients were amongst that data. It took us an entire weekend working around the clock. And so that was the first and last time we did it manually. And we scripted it going forward there and pulled out all that information, basically comparing against what we had known clients as compared to what was in the data. So things like that, but you can apply that to cutting tickets and building servers and all sorts of things. So it's hugely beneficial.
And once you automated things, it allowed you to do things like better escalation of activities and things like that. Is that fair enough to say?
Yeah, absolutely. So automation really gives you a couple of things. One is you're taking for lack of a better term, the grunt work away from the highly skilled analysts that you've of course employed and pay a relatively large salary to, and you're basically allowing a machine or a script to do that work, and then present just the analyst with the things that they ought to or have to review before it becomes an end finished product. So you're really just allowing your folks to do the skilled sort of portion of the job and leaving the less skilled portion of the job to the computers that are quite excellent at it.
So it's not only a workforce multiplier, it allows things to scale and also allows you to delve into the more important information eventually.
Absolutely. And it also helps with or helps prevent folks from making mistakes. We are, at the end of the day, all humans, and there's human error that gets factored into it. And so you can imagine if you have an analyst in the wee hours of the morning looking through millions of log lines of data, they're probably going to miss a thing or two here and there. But if you automated that, the script or the computer will not miss it, and it'll catch it every time. And so that goes true for automating the creation of tickets or automating the creation of notification emails. People make mistakes because we're people, but machines do not. So it's another benefit to the automation piece.
So it can provide kind of a guardrail feature, things like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's hugely beneficial for that.
Now, one of the big topics these days has been security operations orchestration and response. Let's talk about orchestration and what that means.
Yeah, sure. So I think the term you're referring to is SOAR, the acronym, right? We love acronyms in cybersecurity land, and so SOAR. But yeah, the O stands for orchestration. I like to explain orchestration to folks by you literally using the analogy of an orchestra. And so, of course, you've got the conductor at the front of the orchestra, and he or she is conducting everything. And so they are managing the disparate pieces of the orchestra and making it all come together in this beautiful symphony. Security orchestration is very much that way, where where you have these different bits of information. You can think of logs, you can think of alerts, all this data that's coming in, coupled with threat intel, basically all your various disparate data sources. This tool is bringing them all together and sort of commingling them so they can be as useful as possible.
So the benefits of things like this include not only being able to expand your workforce or punch above your weight level, but it reduces things like burnout. You can retain your workforce better, things like that, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So burnout is huge, especially when you ask folks to do repetitive tasks day in and day out. I think that, it's a great experience for everybody starting off in cybersecurity as an analyst or whatever the role is, to do the mundane, the repetitive work for a period of time to kind of get a really firm grasp of what's going on kind of behind the scenes. Again, like analogies, I use the analogy of back in the day when you're doing math homework and the teacher asks to show your work. This is very much like that. You want to do that to prove that you understand what's going on. And it's important to do that because many of our analysts would then take it upon themselves to write the script, to automate the thing. And they can't do that without fully understanding what is going on in the background. But yeah, going back to your original question, repetitive work like that over and over, 100% leads to burnout. We don't want that.
Yeah. Brian, thank you so much for talking to us about orchestration and automation, how they work in security. Sure appreciate it, man.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, James. Great to be here.
Automation and scripting. Automation and scripting have emerged as critical tools in modern IT operations, helping organizations streamline processes, enhance security, and improve efficiency. Automation serves as a tool to enhance both security governance and change management. In terms of governance, automation can help enforce security policies more consistently and efficiently, and it can aid in monitoring and reporting to provide valuable insights for leadership teams and risk managers. In change management, automation can reduce the risk of human error, reduce implementation time, and provide clear audit trails. For example, scripts are effective for applying patches and updates across an organization's systems uniformly, and automation tools can track these changes for later review. Capability, description, provisioning. User and resource provisioning are fundamental IT tasks that greatly benefit from automation and scripting. User provisioning describes creating, modifying, or deleting user accounts and access rights across IT systems. Resource provisioning describes allocating IT resources such as servers, storage, and networks to applications and users. Automation can improve these tasks, reduce manual effort, minimize errors, and improve turnaround time. Scripting these tasks helps organizations provide consistent implementation and improve compliance. Guardrails and security groups. Guardrails and security groups provide frameworks for managing security within an organization. Automated guardrails can monitor and enforce compliance with security policies, ensuring that risky activities and behavior are prevented or flagged for review. Security groups define which resources a user or system can access. Security groups can also be managed more efficiently through automation, reducing the possibility of unauthorized access or excessive permissions.
Ticketing.
Automation can significantly improve the efficiency of ticketing platforms. Incidents detected by monitoring systems can automatically generate support tickets, and automation can also route tickets based on predefined criteria, ensuring they reach the right team or individual for resolution. Automated escalation procedures can also ensure that critical issues receive immediate attention. Examples include high-impact incidents, incidents requiring specialized teams, incidents involving executives and important customers, or any issue that risks violating an established SLA. Service management. Automation and scripting are also essential tools for managing services and access within an IT environment. Security analysts can automate routine tasks such as enabling or disabling services, modifying access rights, and maintaining the lifecycle of IT resources, freeing up time to focus on more strategic or complicated analytical tasks. Continuous integration and testing. The principles of continuous integration and testing hinge heavily on automation. In this approach, developers regularly merge their changes back to the main code branch, and each merge is tested automatically to help detect and even fix integration problems. This capability improves code quality, accelerates development cycles, and reduces the risk of integration issues. Application Programming Interfaces, APIs. APIs enable different software systems to communicate and interact, and automation can orchestrate these interactions, creating seamless workflows and facilitating the development of more complex systems, such as security orchestration, automation, and response, SOAR, platforms. Rate Automation and orchestration implementation. Benefits of automation and orchestration in security operations. Automation and orchestration also offer many important benefits to security operations. Primarily, they enhance efficiency by enabling repetitive tasks to be performed quickly and consistently, reducing the burden on security teams and minimizing the likelihood of human error, sometimes referred to as a workforce multiplier. Automation and orchestration implementation. Benefits of automation and orchestration in security operations. Automation and orchestration also offer many important benefits to security operations. Primarily, they enhance efficiency by enabling repetitive tasks to be performed quickly and consistently, reducing the burden on security teams and minimizing the likelihood of human error, sometimes referred to as a workforce multiplier. Operator fatigue refers to the mental exhaustion experienced by cybersecurity professionals due to their work's continuous, high-intensity nature. Security analysts must monitor numerous systems for potential threats, manage high volumes of alerts, including many false positives, and respond to confirmed threats as quickly as possible. These working conditions often lead to long hours, anxiety, and elevated stress levels, resulting in operator fatigue. This fatigue is a significant concern in cybersecurity because it can lead to decreased alertness and cognitive function and impair the ability of security personnel to identify and respond to threats effectively. Fatigue results in missed critical alerts, slower response times, and a greater likelihood of errors, any of which can compromise security. Automation and orchestration play crucial roles in combating operator fatigue in security operations by minimizing the repetitive, manual tasks that often contribute to operator fatigue. Automation and orchestration significantly reduce the security team's workload by automating routine tasks such as scanning for vulnerabilities, applying patches, or monitoring systems for anomalous activities. This allows for the more efficient use of resources and frees up security personnel to focus on more complex, strategic issues that require human judgment and creativity rather than repetitive tasks. Orchestration enhances the impact of automation by coordinating automated tasks across different systems and software tools and reduces detection and reaction times. For example, if a threat is detected, an orchestrated system can automatically isolate the affected subnet, perform basic analysis and reporting, notify security teams, generate tickets, and document the incident, all without human intervention. Other benefits of automation include enforcing standardized baselines through configuration management tools to automatically override unauthorized changes made to endpoints. A standard baseline in configuration management is a well-defined set of approved configurations and settings that serve as a reference point for establishing and maintaining the desired state of a system. Automation and orchestration can significantly alleviate operator fatigue by reducing the volume of manual, routine tasks, and improving the efficiency of security operations, leading to greater job satisfaction, increased alertness and effectiveness in threat detection and response, and ultimately, more robust security operations. Automation can support staff retention initiatives by reducing fatigue from repetitive tasks. Automation practices can free staff to perform more rewarding work and increase job satisfaction. Important considerations. While automation and orchestration provide numerous benefits, they also present some significant challenges, some of which are listed below. Complexity. Implementing automation and orchestration requires a deep understanding of an organization's systems, processes, and interdependencies. A poorly planned or executed automation strategy can add complexity, making systems more difficult to manage and maintain. Cost. The initial cost of implementing automation and orchestration can be high, including costs associated with acquiring and developing appropriate tools, integrating them into existing systems, and training staff to use them effectively. Automation software maintenance and upgrades can also be costly. Single point of failure. If a critical automated system or process fails, it could impact multiple areas of the organization, causing widespread problems. Technical debt. Organizations can accrue technical debt if automation and orchestration tools are implemented hastily, resulting in poorly documented code, brittle system integrations, or poor maintenance. Over time, this debt can lead to system instability, complexity, and increased costs, ironically similar to the problems associated mainly with legacy systems. Ongoing support. Automation and orchestration systems require ongoing support to stay effective and secure, including updates and patches, reviewing and improving automated processes, and continuous education. Without adequate support, the benefits of automation and orchestration are quickly eroded. Maintaining system security when new hardware or infrastructure items are added to the network can be achieved by enforcing standard configurations across the company. With automated configurations, these newly added items can be kept up to date and secure. Benefits of infrastructure management automation. Automating and orchestrating infrastructure configurations introduces numerous benefits. Enforcing standardized configurations ensures consistency and accuracy throughout the infrastructure. Automation saves time and resources by allowing configurations to be quickly deployed, and it also enhances scalability and flexibility by simplifying the deployment and configuration of new resources. Furthermore, automation and orchestration improve standardization, compliance, and change management by enforcing predefined configuration standards, making auditing and change tracking easier, and controlling configuration drift. Additionally, automation can strengthen security and governance by enforcing security controls, applying patches consistently, and automating security-related tasks. Rate your confidence. Lesson 14.
Summary.
You should be able to identify the importance of governance and its role in shaping the capabilities of a security program. Guidelines for implementing governance. Follow these guidelines to support effective governance controls. Implement a governance structure that best supports the organization's objectives. Leverage expertise through committees to support decision-making. Establish a comprehensive list of policies, processes, standards, and guidelines. Implement change management programs to maintain control and promote transparency. Use automation and orchestration tools to improve consistency, reduce response times, and support compliance. Rate your confidence.
Continue.